Hi, I'm Robbie, and this is the third video about making exhibitions. In this video I will talk in the first part about the concept of an exhibition in general, and in the second part about the more specific way of working from a conceptual approach of exhibitions. This approach is how exhibitions in series can be related. One can have just a series of exhibitions that follow up each other, very logical, but with a conceptual approach we have the series of, on the first sight, standing alone exhibitions. However, it appears that the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. But to begin, what is a concept of an exhibition? When speaking about the concept, we refer to the general ideas from which we develop an exhibition. How we shape and further develop an idea will be shown in the coming chapters and videos. Here we briefly discuss some of the principles. Like that an exhibition has its limitations. Its topic should be close to the people's mind, and it should certainly not be too extensive. For example, it's almost impossible to put together an exhibition with the theme exhibiting. When we explore that theme, we can get closer to what might be realized. For example, the exhibition as means of communication, or criteria to be satisfied by an educational exhibition. So the topic has become much smaller. However, an exhibition offers possibilities that are often not provided by other media. In an exhibition, we can work not only with images, but also with real material. You can see things for yourself, you can hear, you can smell, and sometimes even touch them. The limitations are also determined by the visitors targeted. The question of how to attract visitors is more or less related to how much you want to know and to show on the one hand, and its distance to the visitors on the other hand. An exhibition on correspondence and at all its aspect is much broader and much more difficult to promote than an exhibition, for example, the postal stamps in Spain between 1930 and 1945. In the latter case, a short notice in a specialized magazine may be enough to reach the complete target group. Because an exhibition is made for visitors, the target group, hence that group must have some interest in what is offered. We must keep in mind that to exhibit means transferring information using objects and visual means. The transfer of information is the essence of the exhibition. So we should always first ask the question if, in a specific case, an exhibition is the media of choice. Maybe a brochure, a movie or something else might give a much better result. Why then do we choose an exhibition to present the information? Well, as an exhibitor, you will have to make a comparative, honest assessment. It will regularly happen that other means than an exhibition better serve the goal. That doesn't imply that you shouldn't stand up for yourself. Making exhibitions is your income. So you will have to try a solution in which an exhibition becomes a necessary thing to do. Yes, I might give some examples later of that. The question that have to be asked is why, what and how. Why this exhibition and what do we want to achieve with it? What will we be exhibiting and how are we going to do that? The first question, why? What are the objectives and how are they related to the content of the exhibition? Sometimes you want to make a point, for example with an exhibition about vandalism. Sometimes you just want to show something nice, like a visual art. Hence, the objectives may be general entertaining, passive use, more specific educational, active use, manipulation of behavior. Next question is what? Since we design exhibition always for certain target groups, certain matters are important, like can the target group be identified? In which way does the target group think? What about the prior knowledge and general level of that knowledge? An exhibition preferably consists of a combination of known and new material. People will rather visit an exhibition that exclusively shows well-known material than an exhibition displaying a variety of unknown material. Large exhibitions attracting thousands of visitors often only show the widely known work of a very famous artist. And then the how, the structure of the exhibition. The visitor is invited to, starting from what they already are familiar with, get to know new things, discover new associations and so on. For this reason, the exhibition should have a certain structure. This structure can be realized in various ways. Historically, with regard to time, thematically, systematic categories, in the context of a problem, in the way problem is presented and from a different point of view, result-oriented. All those questions will lead us to the concept of the exhibition. What I want to talk now about is the conceptual approach, in which exhibitions within a series is completely independent, but together the series is much more than the sum of the individual exhibitions. It may sound a bit hazier than it is. So that is why I like to let Johannes Itten, let him talk, my source of inspiration for this approach. Itten was a teacher at the famous Bauhaus in Weimar in the early 20th century. He stated that if you are stiff, you cannot paint freely. So he did some warmings up before the paintings. One day he brought a bowl with lemons and his students had to draw them. Well, that was no problem, they looked very nice. And then it said, well, when someone sees those paintings, they see something yellow, but do they have an idea of what a lemon is? No. Well, that's why I want you to draw the essence of the lemon. They didn't understand what he meant. So he took some lemons, cut them in half and put half the lemon in their mouth. And then he said, now you have to make a picture with, when people see it, they experience the same as you do now. They do not have to see lemons, just taste them. This lesson teaches me how to make conceptual exhibitions. What the exhibitions in the series have in common should be not obvious. They have to be experimental and interesting all by themselves. However, let's say, what they really bring must be hidden. The concept must be related with each other, but, well, before I give as an example the first conceptual cycle, something about my experience in making exhibitions, because that explains why I work like this. I mainly developed my vision on exhibiting when I started working with floor bags in the mid-1970s. When it comes to presenting contemporary art, floor bags is probably one of the most important innovators, not only in Belgium but also internationally. For example, as a director of the Antwerp International Cultural Center, Floor was one of the first to bring the then young Italian, I call it a water artist, Fabrizio Plessi. I grew up in an environment of solid traditional art. So how the work of Plessi was presented was a real eye-opener for me. I was able to work there at that time, so I saw a very interesting presentation. One work was called Cutting Water. There was a large bowl, a jug with water and a pair of scissors and a Polaroid camera standing. You poured the water in the bowl and then you cut the water stream. The moment you were cutting the Polaroid, make a picture, and those pictures came to hang in the museum. Another of his art project was the sowing of water. It was a video made in which Plessis, together with Floor, crossed the Schelde. It's a very large river in Antwerp. And they were in a rowing boat. Floor and another rowed, and Plessis sowed through the water, as you can see on the picture. But it's a very different approach than usual exhibitions, especially those days. So now we come to my first conceptual cycle that took place in 1984. It was 1984, and as a bookshop, you should pay attention to that book. And we had a bookshop and a gallery. What I certainly didn't want was a very nicely arranged exhibition with all kinds of special prints of documentation material that will show how the importance of the book was. I wanted to bring the essence of the book. In the book, Orwell warns against a totalitarian system that wants to limit everyone's freedom as much as possible. For me, freedom was the key word. I choose to bring 4 forms of freedom with 4 art exhibitions. The freedom to make art, the freedom to shape ideas, the freedom to express emotions, and the freedom to experience and enjoy art. So, the first exhibition, I had invited several artists to use our gallery as a studio. Not only could visitors just come and see the artists at work, it was also interesting for the artists themselves. Normally they are working in their own atelier, but now they were the whole time together and the painting becomes a more social activity. For the second exhibition, I invited conceptual artist Hubert. The whole gallery had to be white, and he built with stones a cloud between the 2 places and painted it light blue. His work was figuratively and almost literally bringing the visitor into the clouds. The title was then also "The Floating Had Begun." And indeed, especially children, they loved to fly through the gallery space because it was completely empty and it was very funny. The third exhibition was work with a new Savage from Belgium. It's very expressive and emotional work. The last exhibition was also the most popular. STIM, the Amsterdam Foundation for Electronic and Improvised Music, they make beautiful objects and constructions that respond with all kinds of sounds when they touch. At the exhibition, we had several of those instruments and visitors were allowed to touch them and to make music by themselves. Well, music, at least they created sound. So for captivating exhibitions in which the book 1984 was not presented, but it was 1984 and each exhibition was the opposite of the picture Orwell had painted in his otherwise fantastic book. Prior to the cycle, I visited the various secondary schools to discuss how important art is. The cycle itself opened with the lecture Nietzsche Meets Gudmundsson by philosopher Jos de Mul, who was one of the teachers sitting here at this picture on the desk. Today he's a professor and teaches at the Erasmus University in Rotterdam, so he looks kind of a bit different now. The cycle was concluded with an electronic concert given by Felix Hess. Hess studied physics and obtained his Ph.D. cum laude for groundbreaking study into aerodynamics and movement of boomerangs. Being in Australia and studying the boomerang, he became fascinated by frogs. And so fascinated by the sound and the movement, he made all kinds of electronic animals like those one. in our gallery he had hang the whole gallery with all small things, frogs. And when people were walking around and they were talking, the frogs were very quiet. But the moment the people kept silence, then the frogs started and talking with each other. And so, and the moment you hello, then the frog kept quiet. Very, very funny. People loved it. Well, more information of all this experiment from me in 1984 you find and others you find on our Patreon site. And the next video is about the various practical aspects of exhibiting. I thank you for watching, and I hope my throat will be a little bit better in the near future when there is no more winter. Ciao.